The Pentagon leaks video footage of unidentified flying objects. I'm Marco Perry. Welcome to the Perry Platform. Aliens have been hitting the mainstream news, and for good reason. There have been some videos circulating that seem to show these objects that we don't quite understand floating around. Now, I do want to frame this conversation though. I am by no means a conspiracy theorist. I don't think that the moon landing was fake or something. I don't want you to interpret what I'm about to say as if it's coming from a tinfoil hat wearing perspective. Of course, we've all seen conversations like that, but it is possible to have logical discussions about the validity or lack thereof regarding aliens and UFOs and space generally speaking. So, what triggered this newfound interest in UFOs? Well, the Pentagon actually leaked these unconfirmed video clips of flying objects, and they weren't able to tell you what exactly it is. That's why it's considered a UFO, an unidentified flying object. It does not necessarily mean that aliens are behind it, though. Hence the term unidentified. What could it be? Well, maybe it's a edited video. Now, of course, they say it's not, but there's always room for error there. Maybe it's an object coming out from a different government, a secret military operation. That could be a reason. Maybe it truly is aliens. That's a possibility too. You can't rule anything out, but there's a whole other discussion about what would happen if the truth is determined to be too much for the public. Let's presume for a second that it really is the work of aliens, and they are far more advanced than us, obviously, if they're reaching Earth and we've been unable to reach them, physically with an actual spacecraft. If the government determines that this news will just boggle the mind of citizens, it will cause mass chaos and disorder and unrest, it could lead to the unraveling of civilization as we know it. It's possible they don't reveal the truth to you. It's possible that they dumb it down. It's possible that many things can happen here. It's also possible they tell you the truth because they feel like it's the best course of action. Because any further leak as to their deception will cause far more chaos than just coming out with it. All within the realm of possibility. Now, this ambiguous terrain does give credence to a lot of conspiracy theorists. It's like a playground for them. Where things are uncertain, the conspiracy theorists love it. Because anything they say can't be disproven per se, and so they can get as crazy as they want. I've heard theories that the president, Joe Biden, is in fact an alien himself, and that's where we cross the line. That is exactly the type of speculation that I'm not here to talk about. I'm staying clear from anything that would be considered a Looney Tune. Now, the Pentagon has come forward and said they are investigating the footage, and they will declassify their findings to Congress in June. So not too long from now. And of course, what we just said about the validity of whatever comes out of that, that's up in the air. But nevertheless, it will be interesting to see what their research shows. Presumably, there will be some type of explanation. They'll either say it does look like a man-made aircraft, maybe it's another country's military operation, or maybe they say we actually have no idea. Maybe it is aliens, but we'll find out. Now, the larger question here, aside from the Pentagon's finding, is the inquiry of life beyond Earth. Is it possible that there are other life forms in the universe? Now, I'll begin there, and we'll expand, and we'll go through my entire thinking on the subject. So, the first thing I'll call to mind is the fact that the universe is seemingly infinite. It's actually expanding, continues to grow. It's actually so vast we have yet to fully imagine the depths of it. In fact, it's possible that we never quite get to the finish line there, that we never fully flesh out the picture. And it's looking very likely that'll be the case at least for our lifetime. Now, something like planet hopping is already a massive accomplishment for us. Simply going from Earth to Mars is groundbreaking. But what about solar system hopping? Or galaxy hopping? These concepts, it seems like we can understand them, but when you put it into years, and light years, and how far away we are from that conversation, it really shines a light on our ineptitude as a species. Given this infinite, implausible terrain, filled with things that we scarcely understand, I do think it's actually unlikely that we are somehow the anomaly, that we are the only planet capable of producing life. Because we do know there is an infinite variation at play here. Maybe the majority of planets can't produce life, but even if it's 1 in a million, certainly with the ever-expanding universe, 1 in a million will crop up at least a couple times. Even if it's 1 in a billion, it could crop up a couple times in that infinity spectrum. Even 1 in a trillion, we're talking about infinity here. It will crop up eventually. I do think it's likely there are other living organisms out there, aside from humans and dogs and whatever else you'd find on Earth. Now, that brings me to the next question. If that's the case, if we do presume that there are living things around the universe, why have none of them made contact yet? Of course, we do know why we haven't made contact yet. Technologically, we're not there. We can scarcely get to Mars and back. Going between universes is far too much. Even solar systems would be far too much. But what about the potential other life forms? Why have they not contacted us yet? It's possible that none of them are at that technological level. Now, that's hard to fathom, but there are possibilities here. One possibility is that Earth is somehow actually the most technologically advanced civilization ever in all existence. When we talk about life on other planets, we sometimes forget the fact that an amoeba counts as life. That a tree would actually count as life too. An animal that doesn't have an advanced intellect would still count as life. Maybe that's where the anomaly is, not in the life per se, but in the capabilities. Maybe that's where humans truly shine. Of course, right now we don't have the scope to figure that out, but in a million years, it's possible we do. Or even shorter than that, given how fast technology is advancing in this world. Maybe it's possible that the terrain right now is untouched and that humans will be the first species ever to figure out how to move around the galaxy and to colonize worlds that no one else has gone to. There has to be a first. Are humans that? Well, I guess we'll find out in due time. Now, the other possibility is that we won't be the first and there actually are either equivalent species or superior in terms of intelligence and space travel capabilities and whatnot. And if that's the case, then perhaps it's only a matter of time. See, as we've talked about before, hopping between planets is one thing. Hopping between solar systems is another. Hopping between universes is a whole different beast. Now, we're at the stage where we're hopping between planets. Maybe there's a civilization out there that is already hopping between solar systems, but even that wouldn't be enough to reach us, depending on where they are in this infinite spectrum. Maybe they are more advanced, but they're still a little bit of ways away from reaching us. Maybe they aren't able to send manned vessels to Earth. Maybe the UFO that the Pentagon has seen is sort of an unmanned piece of tech that can make that journey light years and light years away. Something like the Mars rover. Now, there's actually another possibility, and of course there are many, and we can't talk about all of them, but there's a theory out there that once a civilization reaches a certain level of technological prowess, they implode. It may not be that Earth is the most advanced. There have been other species before us that have gotten to a similar level, but there is a certain barrier. And once an intelligent species reaches that barrier, they just can't cope. They end up destroying themselves, and perhaps that's nuclear power. Theoretically, the discovery of nuclear energy and further nuclear weaponry is revolutionary. And the energy you can produce from that is crazy. But perhaps that is something that tribalism, which perhaps is a common thing among intelligent species, exploits. The ability to have a weapon that can destroy your enemies is so tempting that intelligent life forms cultivate it, and they end up destroying each other. And so they reset back to whatever the planet was millions of years ago. And perhaps Earth has yet to hit that barrier. Maybe it's not nuclear energy. Maybe it's the discovery of light speed tech. Maybe it's so powerful that we can't control it, and someone finds a way to use it to destroy the planet. And all intelligent life forms are bound to encounter that problem. So you can look at the probabilities here. Perhaps it's rare to have a species with such developed intelligence. And then perhaps it's rare to not wipe yourself out. And then perhaps it's rare to pass the barrier of nuclear tech or light speed tech or whatever. All these things in consideration together perhaps paint a picture where the likelihood of advanced space travel is super, super rare. And although we do have an infinite galaxy, the odds have just not manifested yet. Now, this is surely a mystery. There's no certainty that any of these theories are correct. They could all be wrong for all we know. But it does seem like we'll find out in due time. Now, the next question that arises is, what does this mean for humans? What does this conversation mean for the human race? Truly, if we do discover that there's other life out there, and they are as intelligent or more so than humans, it's a wake-up call. Truly, the tribalism that we see today, politically, socially, whatever, has to go. For us to continue to operate as North Americans, Asians, whatever barriers you want to put up there, is not productive. Truly, we would become the human race and we'd have to operate as one entity to even stand a chance at competing with whoever else is out there. If we're divided, we're only using a fraction of our intellectual and physical power. And if we're assuming that these other species out there have whatever teamwork items they need to have figured out, and they're operating as a cohesive whole, we'd be at a massive disadvantage and at their mercy. And maybe that is something that we need to happen for us to have that realization. We would need to discover other life forms to really spur the importance of holistic human living. It's very clear to anyone who looks around the world that humans already treat each other terribly. In fact, of all the species on Earth, humans are probably the biggest threat to other humans. Now, imagine for a second that we do encounter other intelligent life in this universe. How would you expect them to treat the human race if the human race is already so terrible to itself? Truly, there are some possibilities there. It's the species we encounter, they may be some breed of saint for some reason, who has abandoned violence and these tendencies a long time ago. And they'll help us get there. They will enlighten the human race, perhaps. That's one possibility. The other possibility is they are very human-like, and they share some tendencies that we have, like violence and conquest. The human race would fall apart, especially considering that for us to meet them, it seems like the onus is on them to come here. If they are capable of doing that, there's no telling what type of armory and arsenal they'd have to subjugate us with. If the human race can't even figure out interspecies relations, there's no true ground to base the claim on that other species should treat us better than we treat ourselves. In fact, another species across the universe, they could inspect Earth, and they would see us violently killing each other. Some portion of the population is living with tremendous riches, while another large subset is dying because they can't eat and whatever. And they could probably create a moral cause labeling us as savages. And perhaps their intervention could rewrite the script and make things better. It's true that the human race is not doing a good job of being the human race. So divided and fractured, and the current political system is not helping that at all. It's terrible. Identity politics, polarization, cancel culture, whatever. It's making it worse, actually. Far worse than perhaps it was even just 10 years ago. I would be interested in having the results on that, but I do feel like that's the case. Now, let's presume for a second we are at the advent of discovering the existence of intelligent species around the world, and with the discovery, they'll be coming over soon to talk to us or whatever. Very hypothetical. I don't think that's the case, but we're just playing with thought experiments right now. It really does hinge, like our future, on their nature. This other species, if they're friendly, well, that could provide us a rapid burst in technology. If they share with us the secrets of whatever, how are they able to contact us? How do they get here? How are they traveling? What's their answer to climate change? How are they living on their planet? So many things that the human race could adapt. And that could propel us. Like, we think tech is moving fast today. Some hypothetical encounter like that could shoot us even faster, past the horizon. Now, if we presume they're not friendly, well, the human race could be looking at a future of enslavement and destruction. And there is something very interesting here. The way humans treat perhaps a pig and the way a higher intellect species from somewhere in the universe might treat humans, they would mirror each other. So the reason why many humans have no issues with locking pigs up, breeding them for slaughter, keeping them in crappy conditions, is because we don't regard them the same as us. If someone was doing that to other human beings, we would rightfully shut that down. It'd be horrendous. It'd be an affront to all of our senses. But we look at pigs and we see them as perhaps a lower class being because their intellect is not on our level. We question, can they really feel love and pain? Does it matter how well we treat them? We use them to eat. We view them as a resource. Now let's say there is some type of higher intellect being out there that would dwarf the human race. To them, we'd be like a pig, barely capable of mustering up the intellectual capabilities that they have. And they would treat us as maybe food for slaughter, whatever. Would we have a moral basis to reject that because of the way we've treated other creatures, living creatures, on this planet? It'd be hard to find a case to do so. So maybe there's another wake-up call embedded there. And this all ties back to our relative perceptions. There is that question of how rare is it to find these elevated consciousnesses around the planet? Humans aren't the only life in the universe. Some people might claim that, but it's a wrongful claim. There's plenty of life in the universe on Earth that we know of. You got your pets, you got the cattle, you got the snakes, whatever you're going to find laying around. Humans are actually a rare anomaly there. Our intelligence, our culture, all that stuff. Now, any other creature theoretically had the ability to evolve like us, dating back billions of years, but they did not. Now, apes and monkeys and chimpanzees are perhaps the closest thing. There are some inklings of consciousness there, at least comparable to humans, and perhaps they are a couple million years away from reaching the human level, but they're on that path. There are billions of life forms and species on Earth. None of them are at the level that humans are at. So we are a 1 in perhaps a billion phenomenon. Now, perhaps if you apply that logic across the universe, it's very likely that perhaps we do find life somewhere else, but it will not be at the elevated level that we witness within ourselves of consciousness and intelligence. Or perhaps maybe we are within another set of percentages there, not even at the peak. Maybe we were the 1 in a billion to develop intelligence, but there's another 1 in a billion odd within there to develop super intelligence. And we only got the mediocre version. And the 1 in a billion of the 1 in a billion super intelligent species will come around and we won't even be a consideration to them because of how primitive we'd seem. It's a very interesting question to try and think through. And finally, there is another common moral dilemma that comes up here. So when it comes to doing things like funding space travel and advancing space tech, it takes a lot of money and resources. We're talking billions, if not trillions of dollars. People see that, and they see all the problems that we have currently on our planet. And they ask a very legitimate question. Is it justified to be spending that much money trying to reach other planets when there's so much suffering here? And that's a hard question to deal with, because it's true. Those trillions of dollars theoretically could be better spent improving the overall conditions on our planet and getting us to a place where no one would have qualms with spending more money on space travel. Maybe we are jumping the gun here, already trying to jump between planets without even having a decent starting point. Our planet truly is in shambles in many ways, and we do have the resources to try and fix it. But instead of doing that, we're allocating them to hopping around the solar system. Not really helping anyone yet, per se. And there's truly an opportunity cost there. Now, some may rebuttal that and say, well, many of the issues we see on Earth are truly a resource issue. Resources are scarce and they're not distributed adequately in many cases. By hopping to other planets, it's possible that we actually discover more resources. And these resources would be just a bonus to what we do have on Earth. And that bonus could be a force that rises the tide for all boats in the ocean. Of course, not equally, because nothing truly is ever equal. But something like that does have the potential to propel us far further than we could achieve with just casual spending the way we've been doing for decades on Earth. Now, I'm not too sure about where truly I'd stand there. I do think it's undeniable that the money could perhaps alleviate way more suffering if allocated differently, taken away from space programs and put to humanitarian causes. But there might be a certain necessity to developing space tech, especially if we're going to be operating on the premise that there perhaps is other life out here. And if we do find that whatever this UFO is has come from another civilization, to not be developing the means of whatever you would call advanced tech, we could be doing ourselves a disservice in that regard. So there truly is a balance there. And maybe it's a false dichotomy even. Maybe it doesn't have to come down to space travel or humanitarian causes. Maybe money can be taken out of another area and funding both of these things adequately. Plenty of government revenue is lost to tax evasion. Maybe we get stricter on that, and maybe we do something to rectify tax laws so corporations are in fact paying their fair share, and maybe that bolsters our banks a little bit federally, and money can be allocated to the humanitarian causes worldwide while we're also doing a little bit of space travel. And perhaps there are many other areas where we can dip and dabble and rearrange budgets. They're both very important causes, and maybe we don't have to pick between them. Maybe there is a way here for us to figure out a mutually beneficial agreement that will check off all the boxes that we want checked off. Of course, I'm only talking theoretically right now, but it's because these conversations are not truly mainstream, and with the way the news is going right now, they might become mainstream very soon, especially pending on what the Pentagon says about the review on this UFO footage. So treat this as a preliminary discussion into the realm of the cosmos and aliens and UFOs and whatnot, and don't go down the rabbit hole of pure conspiracy. I do think there's a lot of valid logical questions to be having here, moral and ethical debates, so it is fun. I did enjoy this talk. So with that, it now brings us to the end of our conversation for today. If you enjoyed the content, be sure to leave a review and share. It'll help us grow. And you can find me online at perryplatform.org and on social media at perryplatform. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you soon.